Hello everyone, welcome to my class today. Today we'll see the continuation of nursing foundation topic, that is post-operative care. And again a big thank you for 1k subscribers. So if you are the first time watching my video, please like, share, subscribe and click the notification button and stay tuned. Now let's see the continuation of perioperative nursing. So in that post-operative care, so post-operative phase means it will extend from the time when the surgery is completed and then the patient is shifted to the post-anesthetic care unit and to the ward, and then he is getting discharged and also coming for the follow-up. So complete recovery after surgery will constitute the post-operative phase. So once the surgery is completed, immediately once the patient is aroused, then the person will be shifted to the recovery unit, or some hospitals call it as post anesthesia care units. So here the staffs will provide intensive monitoring and also continuous monitoring of the patient who is recovering after anesthesia. Coming to the standards of recovery unit, so in that the first standard is, so anyone who is undergoing general anesthesia or regional anesthesia, they have to be continuously monitored in the recovery unit before they are shifted to the ward or any post-op unit. And when the person is transported to this post anesthetic care unit, they have to be accompanied by the member who has given anesthesia, that is anesthetist or someone who is there with the patient while giving anesthesia. They have to carry the patient recovery unit, and they also have to monitor the patient condition once they are shifting in the recovery unit. And once the patient is shifted, number 3 is, even the nurse who is in the recovery unit, they have to reevaluate the patient, whether the patient is coming out of the anesthetic effect. So all those things has to be monitored. And number 4 is, the patient should be continuously monitored for any medical conditions or any complications which can occur during the recovery time. And number 5 is, if the patient has to be shifted from the recovery unit to the ward or to be discharged, so this thing has to be decided by the physician who is in the recovery unit. Okay. And whenever a person is getting admitted to the recovery unit, so these are the criteria you have to know. First is, you have to take a general information about the patient, like name, age, gender, ID number, identification number, the diagnosis of the patient, what surgeries was done, and who was the anesthetist gave anesthesia, and under which doctor the person was admitted, and the name of the surgeon who operated the patient. So these general information you have to collect when patient is coming to the recovery unit. And patient history, like past, present medical history, and what was the indication surgery to undergo, and medication what the patient was taking, like any routine antihypertensives, diabetic medicines if the patient is taking. So all those history you have to collect, and also mainly history of allergies you have to collect. And intraoperative management, so that is, we have to collect the history regarding what happened in the intraoperative period, like what anesthesia, type of anesthesia, and what all the medicines given in anesthesia, and in the pre-op period, and also in the intra period, if the patient has received certain medication and if that medication has to be continued. So all those histories you have to collect. And amount of intravenous fluid and blood transfusions done, so that we will know the intake of the person. And amount of urine output, like any urine output was there in the which was discarded in the intraoperative room. So all those things you have to collect. And also what all the drains available, and what is the type of the drain, and what care has to be done for the drains and catheters, that has to be asked while admitting the person. Okay. And next we also have to see if there is some intraoperative events. Okay, like some patient, if they had an anesthesia and they got allergy to anesthesia, they would have gone some effects. And also if sometimes there can be a respiratory obstruction or a cardiovascular problem would have are aroused because of anesthesia. So you have to ask if the person had some reaction related to anesthetic medicines. And also while doing surgery, suddenly the heart can stop, or suddenly the hemodynamic status of the patient can come down. So all these unexpected events which happen during the surgery, that you have to ask. And also trends in vital signs monitoring. Okay, so whether there was any lower in the BP or pulse, or what medications were given in order to increase the pulse and BP. So anything which happened in the change in vital signs, and what management was done to treat the hemodynamical status, that you have to ask, and laboratory investigations which are done during the intraoperative period. Okay, sometimes a patient would have some mass or some tumors that would have been sent for investigation. So all those things you have to ask, and if the result had already arrived, we have to see the results. And also the doctors will prescribe certain instructions what has to be done in the post-op period, so that we have to ask, so that we will follow the post-operative care. So these are the admission criteria we have to remember when we are receiving the patient in the post anesthetic care unit. And initially when patient is coming to the recovery or PICU, you have to do all this monitoring. So that is circulation, CAB is circulation and airway and breathing. You have to check, see if the patient is adequately oxygenated. So if the saturations are low, then we have to start with the oxygen. If the patient circulation is problem, then we have to start with CPR or give the medications to improve the circulation. And pulse oximetry and ECG monitoring, this has to be continuously monitored. And also we have to check the vital signs, blood pressure, skin color, everything, so that we can identify the hemodynamic status of the person. And neurological assessment has to be done, because the anesthetic effect would make the patient lose conscious. So you have to see whether the patient has come back to the consciousness, he is oriented, what is sensory and motor status, and muscle strength, how much he is able to walk. And mainly you have to check for the pupillary size and reactivity. And urinary assessment, again you have to see for the intake, output, and what is the fluid status, and input, how much patient has taken, and what was the output, if the catheter is there, and drains, all those things you have to identify. And surgical site, you have to assess if the suture, what type of suture is there, and whether there is any bleeding or any draining hematoma from the wound. All those things has to be assessed. And also you have to see for bleeding and pain from the surgical site. Okay, next, in order to find if the patient is fit enough to transfer from the PICU or the recovery unit to the next level of unit, we have to do a modified Aldrich score. So this consists of 6 items with 3 weighted points for each item. Coming to modified Aldrich score, so it is consciousness. If the person is fully awake, we give 2, arousable on command it is 1, and not responding it is 0. And mobility, so when the 4 extremities are moving, then we give 2, and if only 2 extremities are moving or one side the person is gone for paralyzed, then it is 1, and if no extremities are moving it is 0. And next is breathing. If the person is able to breathe normally, we give 2, and if there is dyspnea, difficulty in breathing, 1, and apnea is no signs of breathing is 0. And in circulation, we have to see the systemic BP. If it is equal to the 20% of the pre-anesthetic level, then it is 2, and if it is between 20 to 49% of pre-anesthetic level, it is 1, and if it is less than 50% of the pre-anesthetic level, we give 0. And color, if the color is normal, it is 2, if the color is pale or jaundice, we give 1, and if signs of cyanosis, bluish discoloration is there, then we give 0. And oxygen saturation, if the person is able to maintain more than 90% saturation in room air, it is 2. If patient needs oxygen supplementation, when oxygen is given, then he is maintaining more than 90% of saturation, it is 1. Even with oxygen, if the saturation is less than 90%, then we give 0. So the interpretation of this score is, so if the person is above 9 to 12, then we can discharge the person, but if the person is less than 9 to 12, then patient cannot be discharged. So this guideline has to be followed while transferring patient from PICU. And next is post-operative unit. So it is the next unit after the recovery or the PICU unit. So after from phase 1, the patient will be shifted to this phase 2 post-operative unit. Okay, and again here we do assessment, like we have to record time and date when the person is coming. On arrival to post-operative unit, we see the vital signs, consciousness, movement of extremities, response of the client, and pain score has to be assessed. And if the patient is having some pain control measures like analgesics, and what type of pain control measures are there, that you have to assess. And assess the motor sensory status of the client, like whether he is able to move, and also feel the sensors. So the person will have the surgical wound, so we have to see for the wound status, the dressing, whether the drainage, whether tubes whether they are properly placed, and whether it is draining, and if there is a drainage, what is the amount of drainage, and all the drainage tubes should be connected in place. Okay, sometimes while shifting they will take all the drainage tubes and keep up, so we have to place it like in gravity, it has to be placed down. So according to the hospital policy, it has to be placed as ordered. And assess the color and appearance of skin, and also urinary output, and how the patient is voiding. All those things you have to see, and also any bladder distension is there, that you have to check. And when receiving, you have to see if patient is placed in Fowler's position for airway maintenance, and if patient need extra pillows, we have to provide, and child aids has to be provided in for safety. And check all the IV catheters and whether the solutions are flowing, and if they are blocked, and what is the fluid going for the patient, and remaining fluid, and what rate has to be maintained, and also when what number of gauge IV catheter is inserted, this has to be checked. And emotional status of client and family members, so sometimes patient may be troubled whether he'll become all right and when will get discharged. So many emotional problems will be there, that we have to assess and do psychological support. And a Mrs. Basin and call bell tissues, these has to be provided, because anytime patient may have vomiting and due to anesthesia. And orient the client and family members to that environment, and also check and carry out all the post-operative orders. Next is care of patients in the post-operative unit. So once the patient is shifted from PSU, that is after intensive monitoring, next we can monitor the vital signs 4 to 8 hours. If patient is stable according to the doctor's order, it has to be done. And incision and dressing has to be checked, and all the drainage has to be again checked, and also it has to be monitored correctly, what is the drainage, etc. And also dressing changes should be done using sterile technique, so that it will prevent infection. And here the patient can be helped to sit in the bedside, and also early ambulation has to be started. And respiratory exercises like coughing, deep breathing, and intensive spirometry has to be taught. And check for the bowel sounds. If the bowel sounds are returned, then you have to start with liquid diet and gradually increase the diet as tolerated, and also as per the dietitian or physician's orders. Post-operative care. So once the patient in the post-operative phase, we have to provide the care, so that patient will be maintaining a safe period. So again in post-operative care, so there are certain problems which can occur in each system of the body. So based on the problem, nursing interventions has to be provided. Okay, so first you can see airway obstruction. So this can be because of tongue falling back due to anesthetic effect, and the tongue is having no control, and thick secretions will be there, and laryngospasm and edema can occur because of intubation. So nursing intervention is jaw thrust and chin lift maneuver, artificial oral nasopharyngeal airway you can provide to open the airway, and deep breathing coughing exercise can be taught. Oxygen therapy can be given with face mask or a CPAP machine, and lidocaine to treat laryngospasms, and corticosteroids and antihistamines will treat the laryngeal edema. And patient will have hypoxemia. This can be atelectasis, that is collapse of lungs due to some obstruction by secretions. And pulmonary edema, this is due to increased capillary permeability. There is so much fluid going in the lungs. And pulmonary embolism, this is a complication of deep vein thrombosis. So in the surgical area there can be some clot, and that clot can dislodge and go into the lungs. And aspiration of gastric contents can cause aspiration pneumonia. And bronchospasm, again due to anesthetic effect, there will be smooth muscle tone increased, and the bronchial constriction can be there. So again here saturation has to be monitored. Humidified oxygen should be given either by face mask, or if not tolerated, ventilation can be provided. And deep breathing, coughing, intensive spirometry exercise to be done. Early ambulation will help in mobilizing all the secretions and coming out with the secretions. And diuretic like class 6 and fluid restriction in case of pulmonary edema. And anticoagulant therapy. So in embolism there will be thrombus. In order to dislodge the thrombus, we give anticoagulation. And antibiotic to treat infection, and bronchodilators are there in order to treat bronchial constriction. And hypoventilation, this may be because of pain and the anxiety, patient may fear to take deep breaths, so there can be decreased ventilation, and medullary depression. This is because of opioid and analgesic anesthetic effects. The person's medulla oblongata will depress, and medulla oblongata is the center for triggering the respiration. So because of that, ventilation will be poor, and also neuromuscular blockade can cause decreased respiration. So here you have to give oxygen therapy with mechanical ventilator. Fowler's position should be provided, and if there is any constrictive clothing in the chest, that has to be removed, and if it is the cause is pain, then you have to treat with analgesics. And next, cardiovascular problems. So patient may go for hypotension. This can be due to a blood loss, fluid loss, which can result in shock, and also if patient is using any antihypertensive drugs, this can also further decrease the BP. So here vital signs monitoring, and also check for any internal bleeding, and if there is internal bleeding, cauterization has to be done and arrest the bleeding. IV fluids, colloids, blood transfusion for fluid loss, and antihypertensive drugs if patient is taking, that has to be stopped, and vasoconstrictor drugs like vasopressin can be given to arrest the bleeding and also to increase the blood pressure. And patient may also go for hypertension if there is increased sympathetic stimulation, pain, anxiety, and also bladder retention is there and bladder is distended, and also if the respiratory compromise. Okay, so if there is increased respiration or problems with respiration, patient can go for hypertension. So here you can give antihypertensive drugs like beta blockers and nitrates to decrease the BP, and pain will can give analgesics so that it will prevent the sympathetic stimulation, so that patient will BP will come down. And patient can go for dysrhythmia. So this can be due to hypokalemia, that is decreased potassium, hypoxemia. Hypercarbia is increased carbon dioxide in the blood, acid base imbalance, and circulatory problems can cause dysrhythmia. So here you have to correct all the fluid, electrolyte, and acid base balances. What electrolyte is less, like if potassium is less, we can give potassium chloride, and if it is a problem with acidity, then you can give bicarbonates. And oxygen therapy with ventilation to treat hypoxemia and hypercarbia, and antidysrhythmics like docodrone will treat the dysrhythmia. Next is deep vein thrombosis. So this is the major problem in surgical patients. Due to lying for a long time, there can be pressure, and the venous stasis will cause accumulation of the clot in that area, and also because of IV catheterization in that area also venous stasis can occur, and which will predispose to thrombosis. If DVT is there, we have to elevate the legs of the person so that it will improve venous return, and anti-embolic stocking, sequential compressive devices are there. So this will be applied on the legs so that they will pump and push the blood flow to the heart so that venous return will be improved. And if there is already a clot, then you have to treat with anticoagulants or low molecular weight heparin to lyse or destroy the clot, and encourage the patient to start with post-operative exercises because mobility can decrease the formation of thrombosis. So syncope is fainting. This can be decreased cardiac output, and because of that the cerebrum is not receiving enough blood supply, and also prolonged lying or bed rest. When suddenly after a long time when you get up, the fluid has to push against gravity to the head. So sometimes patient can go for fainting. So before patient want to get up, we have to raise the head end of the bed and slowly assist the patient to sit at bedside for some time. Then slowly, when person BP everything is normal only, then you have to start with the ambulation. And when you are ambulating, patient says that he feels like fainting, then immediately make the patient sit nearby chair or put the patient back in the bed. And GI problems is mainly nausea, vomiting will be there. So this is because of anesthetic effect, and there is low peristalsis and gastric emptying all delayed due to anesthetic agent. So always provide a emesis or kidney tray near the patient's bedside, and also keep the suction machine at bedside because anytime patient can go for aspiration if the nausea, vomiting is there. And anti-emetic drugs can be prescribed, and other biofeedback, relaxation, guided imagery, distraction, music therapy. So these are all some other measures we can do in order to avoid patient from vomiting. And abdominal distension, this is also because of lack of food intake and also decreased peristalsis. There will be excess air filled in the stomach, This can cause distension. So when you start ambulating the patient, and also start with test feeds. Okay, test feeds is small sips of water we have to give and see whether the bowel sounds are coming, and if the bowel sounds are there, then you have to resume with diet, so that patient's distension will be coming down. And if patient is having flatus, then you have to tell them to pass the gas, so that he will feel free, and alcoholic suppository can be given in order to increase the peristalsis and also cause gastric emptying. And next is urinary problems. So in that, patient may go for oliguria. So this can be due to increased aldosterone ADH secretion, which will cause more and more reabsorption of water and fluid back into the body, so that urine output will be decreased. And fluid restrictions before surgery and loss of body fluids through diaphoresis and drainage can cause decreased urine output. So here, once patient is tolerated, we have to tell them to take more of oral fluids. IV fluids has to be administered. And when patient is on the second and third post-operative day, patient will automatically increase the urine output. And patient will have urinary retention. This is due to effect of anesthesia. The micturition reflex will be lost, so patient will not be able to pass urine. And also anticholinergic opioids, so these initiation of voiding will be prevented. And also in lying position, patient may not it's not his usual routine position, so urine may not come out. So if the patient is not passing urine more than 6 to 8 hours after surgery, then we have to catheterize the patient, and plenty of water should be provided to drink once patient is tolerated. And if the patient doesn't feel like passing urine in lying position, then help the patient to sit, or some position how the patient can able to void. You have to help once if the pain everything is reduced. And other techniques like providing privacy and also pouring some water on the perineum, this will all stimulate the micturition reflex, so you can use those techniques. And once ambulate, you can take the patient to the bathroom or sit in the bedside commode, so that in the usual position patient will start voiding and retention can be prevented. And other problems that can occur in the post-operative period is, so patient can go for delirium. So this is because of anesthetic, sedatives, and neurologic injury can occur, hypoxia, anxiety, depression, electrolyte abnormalities. This all will cause delirium. Okay, delirium is some confused like stage, or like there is agitation, shouting, disorientation will be there. So once the patient is becoming normal, or when the person is awake, we have to talk with the person, orient them to the time, place, and environment. And all like safety things we have to do, like securing the IV lines and putting side rails, and artificial airways has to be inserted, so that it will prevent closing of the airway. And fluid electrolyte balance has to be corrected, and adequate nutrition once tolerated should be provided, and bladder bowel function has to be maintained properly. And also psychological support, talking, listening, offering explanation, and genuine reassurance should be provided, so that it will relieve the anxiety. And there's pain and discomfort. So this is also a main problem with post-operative patients because of trauma on the surgical side. So for pain, morphine can be given, and nowadays patient controlled analgesia is there. So this button will be given to the patient, so according to the pain he can control the analgesia. And epidural analgesics also are given, so this will have a sedative like effect, so that patient will not feel the pain. And if the patient is very severe and intolerable, we can also provide regional anesthetic blockade, like it is an anesthetic this, so that there won't be pain sensation. And non-pharmacological therapies like relaxation, diversional therapy, music therapy, massage, deep breathing, everything has to be done for pain management. And next is hypothermia. So patient will have problems in temperature balances, and also immediately the surgical period there will be loss of heat from the body due to blood loss. And also anesthetic medicines, they will distribute that heat away from the body. Make the post-operative bed in such a way it is warm. You can use hot water bottles or some heated aerosols, forced air warmers, heated water mattress. So anything has to be provided in order to make the area warm for the person. And oxygen therapy, this also will increase the core body temperature. And after 1 or 2 days after the surgery, patient will have the hyperthermia, that is fever can occur. This is because of wound infection or any nosocomial infection or thrombophlebitis infection in the IV site, or during surgery if microorganism has entered the blood, it can cause septicemia. So you have to do all the culture tests. So if there is a problem with urine, then urine culture. If the problem in blood, blood culture, and also wound culture has to be done to see where the infection is. And always when you handle the patient, we have to do all procedures with aseptic manner, and also wound site dressing. You have to follow aseptic precautions. If the airway secretions are not cleared, through secretions also microorganism can enter the lungs. So you have to see all the airways clear. So if patient is not able to cough out, then we have to suction and remove the secretion. And IV site care, urinary catheter care, drainage site care. So all wherever wound is there, all the care has to be provided to prevent infection. And if the fever is there, we have to start with antipyretics like paracetamol, and also antibiotic can be administered to treat the infection. So these are the post-operative care. I hope you have understood my class. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and click the notification button and stay tuned. Thank you.